Hello everyone. We're going to take a few minutes to talk about command line arguments. So what are command line arguments? Command line arguments are data that you can pass into your application. Now I know we've used idle for some of our examples, but command line arguments are only really going to work if you are writing a Python script and then running it in the command line. That's command line arguments. So what does a command line argument look like? Let me switch to the proper directory. Okay, so we're in week 10 here, and we have a file python commandline.py. So this is the name of our script. So we're calling Python and we're passing in the file name of our script, commandline.py. And I haven't written anything yet. That's the point of this lesson. So let's go back. So it's blank right now. And part of this week, we're going to be analyzing JSON, JavaScript object notation. We're going to look at an API that analyzes an email address. So let's go ahead and say if we had an application, commandline.py, and we wanted to pass in an email address, we can put a space here and then Matthew.Crowley at try-c.edu. So this is essentially the first command line argument that we're passing in is the email address. So when Python parses this command line, it's looking at everything past the word Python in a space. So it's looking at this whole thing, and then it's splitting it up by individual strings. Now, individual strings, if there's no spaces in any of this, it splits by spaces. But let's say there was a space, so I'm passing in hello world. You would have to wrap it within quotes. So what Python is doing is it's looking for those quotes, and then if there's no quotes, it's splitting on spaces. Now, pardon me. The argument list, so what it does is it creates a list and it passes it back to your application, splits it up by individual strings, and the first item, so the script is actually the 0th entry in the list, and argument 1 is your first entry, and so on and so forth. So always remember too that the actual script name you're passing in, the file name, is argument 0 in the list. Now it will become more clear when you see the code. So let's go back and let's write some code. So for this, we're going to import sys. So sys will allow us to access the argument list. And we access the argument list through sys.argv. So what we're going to do here is we're going to print the first argument, first script name, and then we'll do sys.argv index 0. That's always going to be your script name. Your list will always contain at least one item. That's going to be the name of your script. So we're going to save this, and we're going to run this without anything beyond commandline.py or cmdline.py, and just run it, and you'll see script name cmdline.py. So again, Python took everything beyond this Python space, took everything beyond it, and turned it into a list. So your list will always have at least one item, index 0, that will be the file name. Now remember, before we typed this and I typed in Matthew.Crowley at try-c.edu. That would be your first item in the list. So your 0th item would be the file name. Your first item would be the email address. Now we can use basically our normal list access to make a determination what we should do. So the user could pass in an email address. The user doesn't have to pass in an email address. So we need to account for both cases. Typically, when a user doesn't pass in any arguments, a command line program will display help. So, or print usage. So what we can do is we can say if the length of len of sys.argv is less than 2, so you've only submitted one item, which is the script name. Yeah, we will print usage. So what we're saying is we're going to say if you've only submitted the file name, we're going to tell you how to use this program. Otherwise, we're going to say, and actually we don't even need the else. We can use sys.exit to exit the application because we've imported sys. Because we're not going to proceed beyond this if statement if the user didn't enter anything. So we don't even need the else statement. The rest of your program is essentially the else. If the amount of arguments is 2 or greater, then we're going to display the email. So now we're going to do print email address plus sys.argv at index 1. That's going to be the email that you provided. So let's save this. Now let's run it again without adding the email. And here, script name commandline.py usage. Type in commandline.py and then type in an email. We didn't pass anything in. So what we can do is now pass in the email. And now we get the email address. So I talked about spaces before. So let's say spaces are invalid in an email, okay? But let's say there happened to be a space in my email. So Matthew Crowley with a space in between at tryc.edu. Now, what do you think this is going to do? Well, if we run it this way, the email address is just going to show up as Matthew. Why? Because argument or index 0 of the array will be command line or the list will be command line.py. Argument 1 of the array, so index 1 of the array will be Matthew, and index 2 will be Crowley at tryc.edu. So if we hit enter here, you're going to see email address of Matthew. Now we know that's incorrect. So the end user has to deal with this, not you. And how does the end user deal with this? The end user can wrap the command line argument in quotes and then hit enter. And now Python treats everything within the quotes as a single argument. So that's basically it. That's how to use command line arguments. A pretty quick lesson. You're going to be using command line arguments in your final project. This isn't a huge drawn out lesson. Let me point out one other thing. A lot of times you will see programs that allow for something like command line.py a help flag, right? Something like that. You can do that too. So how do we do that? So we have this print usage statement here. So let's create a function def print help, and all help is gonna print to the screen is what we put here. So we're gonna replace this method with, or this call to print help, because there's gonna be two cases where we're gonna print the help. One is if you don't supply enough arguments. Another will be is if you supply help. So if length of sys.argv equals 2 and sys.argv in the first index equals the string help. Now we're going to do the same thing here. We're going to print the help and then hit exit, and then exit the app. So let's see what we do. Let's take all three cases. So let's say the first one, I just run the application. Okay, I didn't supply enough command line arguments. Let's go through the code. So I just submit the application, no arguments, if length of sysargv is less than 2. All right, we hit there. We print this line of code, print help. We jump up to line 3. We print the usage. Now we hit sys.exit. The script exits. Okay, that's case 1. Case 2 will be as if I do help, right? How did that work? Well, I do have 2 arguments. So we run this application. I have 2 arguments, so this doesn't apply. Now we jump down to this else if. Else if the length of sysargv equals 2. All right, we have 2. We have command line.py, and then we have dash dash help. Those are our 2. All right, now we're going to print the help and exit. Okay, so that's how it works. And then the third case will be passing in my email address, and neither of these if statements will hit, right? So len.sysargv, well, we have 2, so that doesn't work. Okay, if length sysargv equals 2, that's true, but sysargv at index 1 is not equal to help. It's equal to Matthew space Crowley at tric.edu, so that doesn't work, so we jump to line 15. So again, that's it. So again, with help, you'll want to display a help. That'll be one of the requirements of your final project. But this is how to do it. Super simple. Copy the code. Very easy to do. Handling arguments is pretty simple in Python, thanks to Python's built-in argument parser and sys.argv. So that's it. If you have any questions, please let me know.